Welcome to the Real Producers Podcast. Today, we're diving into the power of specialization with three industry experts. Rob Ellerman breaks down the power of recession advertising, Chris Mosier shows how to thrive in the lakefront living market, and Mike Smolligan reveals why Zillow isn't the enemy. Let's get into it.
So people always ask, right, how do you track the billboards? How many leads you get from the billboards? And I just say we don't track it. Like, you can't track it, right? I mean, you don't know how many people see something, go to the website, whatever. But it's so good for all kinds of different things for us. It's a digital billboard, so we can change the message all the time. Example, the Real Producers, obviously, we had 3 people on the team that were in the 40 under 40 in the magazine, the issue. And so, we put them on the billboard and all of their COI list is, oh my gosh, you're on a billboard and you're famous and you're this and you're that. And they're loving it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm on the greatest team and stuff. So, I mean, it's just good for all of that. I mean, I've had kids that have won a soccer championship and we put their stuff on there and, the agent's like, oh my gosh, my kid wants to sit in the parking lot across from the billboard and just watch it all day. So we put
works, man. Like that, you're exactly right. It doesn't, you literally said we don't track it. And I think one of your quotes was, though, if you're not on the billboard, you can guarantee there's 0 leads.
Right. Right.
So I love that perspective too, because I think that people are looking at options and they're thinking about one thing. How much money, I say this all the time about ROI, how much money can I give you and how much money will I be able to track immediately or in the next year from giving you that money? And I don't think that's a good look on things. I mean, how many of your agents, when they're being recruited, because they're being recruited on a daily basis or they're thinking about their options, there's high turnover rates, not only in the industry, but also from brokerage to brokerage. How many of them subconsciously that's just a drop in the bucket of one of the many things that you do to make them feel loved? And that comes into play when they're considering or not considering making a jump. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the one thing I'm probably the most proud of in the business is our retention. We just don't have a lot of people leave, and the people that do leave are usually agents that aren't going to do business anywhere else anyway. It's probably not the right business for them for the most part. So our retention is really, really good. And I think that's because we have so much value. And, the billboard is just one of, like you said, many things that we provide to them for value.
Well, let's talk about those many things, not necessarily the loving on piece, but marketing in general. You really believe in marketing, so much so that you started a marketing firm. What's your philosophy on marketing?
Yeah. So, a lot of times I'll have a team lead call me and say, hey, can we do lunch or whatever? And I want to just kind of pick your brain on stuff that's not on my team. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we'll go to lunch. And the first thing I ask them, they'll have a team of 5 or 6 or 10 or whatever. And I'll say, what is the value that you provide to your team? And don't tell me it's leads and don't tell me it's your knowledge and your mentorship. Because none of that is retention. It's going to be good for retention later, right? Because you can provide leads to 5 people. Mm-hmm. Can you provide leads to 215 people? Yeah, it's virtually impossible to make them all of their business be your leads or majority of their business be your leads, right? So, and then mentorship and knowledge, I've got people on my team doing, 40, 50, $60 million a year. They're not walking into my office going, hey, will you tell me how to sell a house? Or will you tell me how to, they're in the trenches. They probably have more real estate knowledge than I do, right? Because they're in the trenches every day selling $60 million a year. So
how do you build that loyalty?
Yeah. So you have to have value. So some of the things that we have a full marketing team. We have a graphic design artist. We have an events coordinator. We have a social media graphics person as well. So social media, she does consulting on that and helps them with reels and all of that jazz. We have 2 office managers. We have a lead coordinator. We have a trainer. We have 4 moving vans. So our clients get to use moving vans for free. We have all the magazines. We have all the billboards. We have all the social media ads. We spent, I think my profit and loss just the other day, for the first 10 months is over $700,000 in marketing that we've already spent for the year. So
is that in all markets?
Yeah, that's in all markets. Right. Yeah. So, but could I cut that down? Absolutely. But I don't believe that if I cut out $300,000 that I'm just going to put $300,000 in my pocket, I feel like that may lose agents that actually make me money,
Sure.
and I don't retain them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's so much to a team leader that these people get on a team, and there's really no value to be on a team. And I think that's where you don't see teams grow. Like you've watched us go from, I mean, an individual agent at 2.1 million to over 800 million. And it's been 26 years of straight growth. So, what is the reason there? And I think it's because we retain people and we don't lose them. If you're just losing and adding people again, your numbers are just going to kind of, flow along the same.
We can geek out about this topic all day because this is Real Producers 101. I mean, our revenue comes from advertising partners who advertise in our magazines and come to our events. You said $700,000 just this year on advertising. How do you pick the mediums? Do you let your agents come and what they're excited about? You co-op with them? Do you choose for them? Like, I already know you're doing billboards. What else goes into that number?
Yeah. So we, I say we don't track billboards. We track pretty much everything else. The billboards is the one thing that we can't track well, because you don't know, like when you throw up your website or whatever, you don't know that they saw the billboard and then went to the website. We just see the website numbers and, the website traffic's been good this month or whatever. So, and there's probably something to do with the billboard there, but everything else, yeah, we really track where our leads come from. We do Zillow, but we've been as high as $27,000 a month with Zillow. We've been as low as $1,000 a month with Zillow. We do other lead stuff. We do a lot of forced registration. That's been big. Our magazines and things like that. A lot of people will tell you like, "Oh, print's dead." Well, we got 1,500 leads off our print last year. So
how do you know that there's a QR in the actual ad?
We have lots of different ways. We have call rail numbers. We have QR codes. We have different ways of tracking all that stuff. So, and again, some of that, even if I made no money off the magazines, your agents get to sit down in a listing presentation and say, "Hey, the other agent that you're interviewing, I know them, and here's what they don't do compared to us. We're going to put you in this magazine. You're going to be in all the grocery stores. You're going to be on the billboard. You're going to be, all of this stuff." And I think, so I think, a lot of times they might get a listing that they wouldn't have gotten because of all of our advertising. And so we all make money that way as well. And it's not just straight, tracking it from the exact marketing source that we have.
Well, I mean, the truth of the matter, and we talk about marketing all the time on this podcast, is the stacking effect. If you're in a grocery store, a billboard, and a magazine with the same ad, and someone goes past that billboard, it might have been the reminder that they needed after 10 times of seeing it in the grocery store and the magazine, but the billboard was the last thing to the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of reaching out to you guys. So if you're doing that, you made the comment, if I took it $700,000 down to $300,000, you wouldn't have that stacking effect. You would have one thing in one place, and the amount of times those eyeballs see your brand or that person would diminish. And the love effect of loving on your people would immediately diminish because you wouldn't be doing that. So
right. And then if you lose, then you go lose somebody that does good business, and maybe you make $30,000 off that person. The magazine cost you $20,000 for the year. Like, what did you do there? So I just believe that there's got to be value, and some of that is in like all of that stuff, like you said, and kind of stacking it as the advertising goes.
What do you think about, so we're in the last 18 months, real estate recession, advertising in a recession when no one else does. What do you think will happen in the following 18 months if everyone else drops out of advertising? What actually physically happens in that moment?
Oh, that'd be great, right? So back in 2008, when all of that was happening, and I really started hearing it in 2005, to be honest with you, people said, "Oh man, it's kind of changing. Things are, things are setting longer," and you started seeing houses stack up a little bit. And then 2006 kind of got, not great and stuff. And everybody was like, "Save your money. don't advertise. And we have some pretty big magazines that go out here in town. And so back then I called our magazine that we knew, and I said, how much for the front cover? And they were like, well, it's normally $5,000, but we'll sell it for $2,000. And I said, well, I'll give you 500, but I want all 12 months.
Right.
And I'll do 500 a month for 12 months. And they were like, no, can't do that. And about 3 days later, they call me and say, okay, would you take 10 months of that or whatever? So, so we started being on the fronts of every magazine, the back of magazines. Back then there was still newspaper stuff that was good. So it was a lot of print back then, which isn't the same today, but it really, we went from 75 deals to 375 deals through the recession. So people were still getting divorced. They were still having babies. They were still getting job promotions. I mean, there was still, when somebody would come into my office and say, well, it's a recession, nobody's selling, I'd just get on MLS and go, well, 20,000 homes have sold so far this year.
Yeah. How many of them were you?
Yeah. You can't get 10 or 20 of those. Like, come on.
You mentioned Zillow before, and Zillow has caught a lot of flack, and we haven't had a Zillow representative. The most recent one I heard is possible, the conspiracy theories that Zillow is behind the lawsuits. I'm curious as to your thoughts. How has Zillow played into your interactions with your teams and where they're going? I mean, it has changed so much, the landscape over the course of the last 10 years, especially. And I commend Spencer Raskoff, who I want to have on the show. You're listening to this and you can get Spencer on the show. I want to have him come on and talk about all the things he's doing. But for him to go into every single board, local, and get approval for Zillow to be a part of that and become the monster that it is now, they're going to catch flack. Sometimes warranted, sometimes not, depending on who's listening. So what have you done? What have you kind of noticed, and how have you used Zillow to your advantage or not?
I've actually always been with Zillow. When I started on the team that I joined 10 years ago or 11 years ago, I believed in Zillow. They had a Zillow budget. I kind of proved that's how this all started. I proved myself to be someone that was good at converting internet leads, and I, grew my reviews and I actually took over the Zillow account. My first convention that I went to was the Zillow convention in Vegas. I went to, I think, 4 or 5 of those, and I've embraced it. I think if we, as realtors, did a better job at getting our listings out nationally and not just on our local boards, that there wouldn't be a Zillow. But right now in Michigan, there's 50 different MLSs at least, where your properties are posted. And if you don't know where to look, if you're trying to relocate to the east side, without going to Zillow, it's hard to find properties or even agents to work with. So just having that platform to have a nationwide database of properties available has been huge for us in growing our business with, people relocating, people looking for an agent that isn't in their circle. There's a lot of people that don't want to work with their uncle because he's a jerk outside of real estate, or they don't trust, their cousin because, whatever reason. But, people are looking for people that they can trust, they can refer their friends to, that they can share information and confidential information about what they're looking for in their next house. And
so you're saying you use Zillow as a reload tool because there's no central location for all the properties, even if you use Keller Williams in this instance, the Keller Williams in Detroit or Novi, that only limits you to the listings of just that. So Zillow actually then becomes your total tool for reload.
That's a big part of it. And then it's also for finding an agent. So if you go to Detroit and just type Detroit, and then it'll show you all the best agents in Detroit. You can read their reviews. You can look at their past sales. And if you don't know somebody in that area, it's a good way to connect with somebody that has experience and track record.
Are they the best agents though, or are they the agents that pay the most to Zillow?
You can't pay to add sales to your profile. So if you go to Agent Finder on Zillow, it's going to show you how many past sales they have, and then it'll show you how many reviews they have, which I do feel like, because I've had a lot kicked back, I do feel like they do a pretty good job at screening reviews and only allowing verified reviews to be posted on the website. So you can pay to be featured as far as being at the top of the list, but it's not going to show you up there with the same amount of sales and reviews as the other people.
So, what other tools do you find that are useful in your team that as you grow and you're focused on the agent itself? I mean, I think from what I know about you, from the notes, from your office, everything, you put a lot of time and effort into individual people. What resources do you give them immediately when you're looking to grow them?
So actually, one thing still kind of on that Zillow track is Zillow calls when you are connected with a buyer or seller on Zillow. They're all recorded, and the buyer sellers are made aware of that. But we actually share those recordings as a team on Fridays. We play them so the other people can hear that conversation and how did we do? How did we answer the questions? Did we stick to the format? Did we set the appointment? And we do that so other people can learn from us. And if you know your calls are being recorded and played for other people to be listened to, you're going to do a better job at helping the people that are calling and take those calls more serious. So we kind of use that. And then also we do a lot with social media. So we have a full-time marketing guy who does video and postings and blog posts for really anybody on the team that wants that kind of marketing done. And it's good for new agents to get started because people want to work with people they know, like, and trust. And even if you don't have experience in real estate, if they can trust you as a person, they're going to want to work with you just because they know you're a good person and not going to steer wrong, even if you don't know all the answers to the questions.
That's a good segue into the final question I had for you around kind of this whole concept of Zillow and what's happening with the lawsuits. You know, there's some fears lead to conspiracies and all the things like I was saying at the top of the show where, the buyer's agent may cease to exist, or Zillow's going to bait and switch and turn it into a company where anyone can open their own doors and collect the commissions on a real estate deal. As you're looking at what is happening and what's being navigated by NAR within the lawsuits and just kind of the direction of the narrative of the realtor itself, what are you telling your agents when you're recruiting new ones, when you've got people who are, within their first 3 years of selling and it looks like it's going towards a struggle for at least the buyer's agent side? What is your reaction? What are you telling your people?
We work with matters. So as a new agent, getting into this business, you're going to need somebody there to answer questions, somebody there that has a track record, reviews, a history of doing what they're trying to do, and to kind of leverage that and to get started. So I think it's going to be harder for new agents to get into the business because currently all you have to do is show up and be nice, and your commissions are paid for by the listing agent typically. And now the change, which I'm not afraid of, and I don't think anybody on my team is to be able to say what you're going to do for that money before you do it. So the change is going to be you have to sign an agency, a contract with a buyer before you go out and start looking at homes. And a buyer's going to have to be willing to pay you if the listing agent or seller are not willing to pay you. So I think that's a good thing for the industry. It's more about transparency. You
don't seem concerned. You don't seem concerned. A lot of people are really concerned. You don't seem so concerned.
No. I think if what we're doing is worth what we're asking, people are going to continue to pay it. And I think we can show a track record of being able to help people get the house. And as far as sellers, I think as a seller, you're going to want to pay a buyer's agent commission because it encourages more offers. So you're going to have better chance at getting a competing or multiple offer situation if you're offering some sort of buyer compensation.
There's people who will be listening to this that, we talk a lot about, should I join a team? Should I be a single agent, or should I start a team? But we know what we don't talk a lot about, at least on this show, is, should I start a franchise? Should I be a broker and start a niche product here, a niche service? And you had never planned that and kind of fell into it. So what have you learned through the process?
I've learned that when you become everything to what a need is out there, there's no denying that people are going to magnetize towards that. And also, like, if you were going to get brain surgery, you wouldn't go to a heart doctor to do that. People don't want a generalist; they want a specialist when it comes to lake homes. And you can go ask any realtor. I would ask people when they're looking for lake homes. Do you want a realtor that can take you out on the boat to see the lake, to experience the lifestyle, to understand the lakes, all the parts of it, what happens in the winter? When the water goes down in the winter, are you going to be in the mud flats, or are you going to be out on the main part of the lake where it doesn't even matter? It's knowing, being an expert about every single lake.
Sure.
And providing that knowledge that someone looking for a lake home doesn't even think about. They're not even thinking about any of that. So I think when you have a specialist in the lake and all the lakes, and like my team for Ohio, we have someone who may want to look at Apple Valley Lake, but also at Candlewood. Well, they meet with both those agents because those people, they have their boat there, they take them out, and we work as a team to work with the client then and find what they need.
Yeah, there's especially with the NAR lawsuits, obviously this last year, there's this narrative amongst the consumer, and some of them watch CNN and think that realtors are collecting a paycheck for doing nothing. I've got to think that on the lake, a good realtor is worth their weight in gold. If you look at just even the lake that I'm on, there's places on the lake where it's mucky, there's no sand, so like you can't go swimming. You wouldn't know that if you just called the agent that's on the Zillow listing and bought that house. I almost did that. There's some areas where there's a nasty wind with a nasty smell because you're downwind from parts of the lake that just smell. There's nothing you can do about it. There's parts of the lake where you have to troll for 20 minutes to get to the main part before you can actually go fast. So if you're going to go out on your boat, you have to budget at least 40 minutes just to get to it. And these are things that you would not know if you just, called the agent on the listing or, for sale by owner. I think it's time to take back the narrative. I don't know how to do it outside of me just being a champion. I'm not a realtor. I champion you guys all the time. But what do realtors need to do to get that message out there? What you're saying right now, I mean, we're not going to have a lot of consumers listening to this podcast and listen to what Chris has to say. How do you guys get in the word out there that you need a realtor for this?
Well, within our website is our machine right now. And just showing the whole, everything that we know about looking for a lake house. I mean, it's not just the homes, it's the lifestyle, it's everything that we just talked about. And then it's also, quite honestly, with most lake homes, you're in a multiple offer situation. So people now with this new NAR law think that they can just go to the listing agent and not have to pay a buyer broker fee. Oh my gosh. Well, how are you going to deal with a multiple offer situation on your own? And how are you going to draft an escalation clause? And because we do that in Ohio, and, but just all these negotiating that even all realtors need to know, but especially in the lake market. And quite honestly, at each lake now, we've become known and created that when people go to, if they do want to do for sale by owner, they call us and say, hey, I'm going to be selling my house. I just need your team to know this. If a realtor is getting a lakefront listing, they call us and say, hey, do you have any buyers? And we always do. It's crazy. But most of the time, I mean, we have the insight to what listings are coming on because we're in that niche. And I think as a buyer, if you're trying to do it all on your own, or there's just no way you can know all the facets to what's out there, what you want and where, and everything that you had mentioned, and then just negotiating. If you try and do it on your own, you're going to waste a lot of time and probably money.
Yeah. Well, speaking of wasting time and money, we pride ourselves at Real Producers as being experts in marketing and branding, and you've been doing this for 20 years now. I remember when I bought my lake property, one of the swag pieces they gave me was a boat key floaty and I used it for years. And I thought that was so smart because I came from closing gifts where they would engrave their name on knives and then they were there forever. And like those little things work. What have you done that's been unique over the last few years or 20 years of marketing specifically around lake life?
Oh, with marketing, there's always those little gadgets, because everyone's grilling at the lake.
Yeah.
Doing the marshmallow handles that are engraved with Lakefront Living, or
oh, nice.
We do all that kind of stuff. The the meat thermometers, just kind of stuff. One of the fun things we did was it was called dock tails, and instead of cocktails, your boat dock tails.
Nice.
So we would go around and we would on the lake just have different, everybody would create a different dock tail, and you would go dock to dock, but handing out the Yeti cups with our name inscribed on them or whatever, but all around creating something that you're doing with people too.
Do you have so all the lakes in Indiana have some type of publication, whether it's on that one particular lake or a grouping of lakes, and they've figured out like niche paper marketing has come back in a big way. They even since we've been doing it, we've been around for 10 years now, and Two's niche products have been around for 20 years. And we see every 5 years ebbs and flows of, paper products coming in and out. Right now they're thriving. When it comes to like magazines, how do you determine which ones to go into for your own marketing? Because if there's, how many did you say, 15 major lakes and 1,500 minor lakes?
Right. So every lake normally has its own newspaper or a publication of something. We're always in that. Once you get the listings, you get the buyers. Although we get buyers even if we don't have the listings because of our website. So we have a double-edged sword, which is really nice. But I got to tell you what, a lot of people who sell their lake home, they sell usually for one of two reasons. There's mom and dad or somebody has passed away, unfortunately, and everyone's moved out of state, and there's nobody there that's just simply going to use it. It's been in the family for forever, and they're usually fixer-uppers, or that's what we're usually selling. Or
has your team ever tackled the flip on that? Like, have you ever seen the opportunity and be like, man, they just want to get rid of this, we'll go ahead and rehab it and make the profit from our own team?
No, I did that once. I'm done.
That's not your cup of tea.
I'll work with you, but now there's so many investors. This whole Airbnb thing is huge.
Yeah.
And, so although that's something to watch out for, though, because the investment community, a lot of people now are like, if I can just buy this and then put it, but most lakes, most of them, not the state-owned ones, are in private communities with HOAs. We just had a local, where I'm at, the HOA it used to allow short-term rentals, and they just switched it and said no longer. And now you have all these people who bought investment homes in Airbnb, VRBO, who can't do it anymore, and there's lawsuits going on. So that's
extremely frightening, and that's something that you have to watch for. That's why people think, I don't really follow politics, I don't watch the news, and I think that's ignorant. Like, you at least have to know what your state is leaning towards when it comes to those policies. Because if you look at Florida was so saturated with short-term rentals, but now people are so over it that even if they're not an HOA, they're finding ways to just like take it to the right people and say, we don't want this anymore. And so if you're an investor, so I'm an investor, right? And if you're looking at a lake to invest in, or a side of the lake, like there's parts of our lake on the north side that do have an HOA. On the south side, there's nothing. It's like county roads. So you got to know that, because the first ones to go, like you said, are the HOAs. And so now you're like so excited, I'm getting my first property and my first rental, and we're going to visit it. And all of a sudden, bam, can't do short-term rentals. So what are you going to do? You have no option but for long-term. And if you were planning on using it yourself, it's going to be kind of weird if someone's living there and you're trying to use your own rental.
Right.